Welcome to the Autistic Delicatessen.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. The food is great.
The food makes community. The food makes community.
What you eat and what you drink is your story. Welcome to our second season of the Autistic Delicatessen in our video series. I'm Larnell, along with my co-host.
Onikage?
Yep, and we're still socially distancing, but don't worry, to get through COVID, we have a nice guest that's going to really get you into the mood of fusion food. So you're very excited about that, right, Oni?
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to the interview. I'm sure it's going to be lighthearted and full of fusion food. I love fusion food, so I'm excited to see how this all pans out. So
Yeah. And real quick before we get into the intro, have you ever mixed in Scottish food with any other type of ethnical foods?
Not that I know of. I'm not sure. I think the only thing I'm familiar with is people mixing haggis with other things, like making their own berry version fusion of haggis, but I couldn't tell you what. But fusion food in general was interesting because you can experiment with various ingredients and make something your own.
Honestly, that would be very interesting to mix in haggis with some other stuff. I never had personally haggis myself, so I just heard from some people it's not really that good, but Today's guest is Amy Kritzer, who writes a food blog called What You Want to Eat. Amy creates traditional Jewish desserts with a modern twist. She has her own recipe book called Sweet Notions, which is full of modern desserts based on Jewish recipes. Amy also has an Instagram that provides all of her creations for her food blog. Her main platform is her blog, which provides different recipes. Amy, welcome to the Autistic Delicatessen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You just got through the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah. So, of course, we have to say Happy New Year, too, as well. It's also the Jewish New Year, too, as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think everyone needs a new year right now. So we're all allowed to say Happy New Year.
Oh my gosh. And then my co-host Oni is in our country. So it's like, I think we all could say together, yes, we need a new year right now.
Yes.
Even during these times right now. So, Amy, how have things been for Rosh Hashanah with you and your husband celebrating even during this time of COVID?
Yeah. So this year, everything's a little weird, of course. So normally for Rosh Hashanah, we'd get together with some of our families and have a big celebration with a lot of people and a lot of food. We live in Puerto Rico, and my parents are in Connecticut, my brother's in California, my husband's family is in Michigan. So it ended up being just the two of us this year, which really in the end ended up being very special and nice. I made usually I'd make a brisket, and it's hard to make brisket for two. Brisket feeds 8 to 10 people easily. So sure. I made some short ribs instead, but kind of a similar cooking method, and some potatoes and broccoli on the side. Just kept it really simple, and we still had a sweet new year. Apples and honey is a traditional Rosh Hashanah food to symbolize having a sweet new year. So we did everything just a lot more pared down. I didn't have to wear shoes. It was just more chill. So I think you can still have a beautiful celebration during these crazy times, and just tweak things and decide what's important to you and what's not, and just do what feels right. So it was great.
Could you tell us a story how you started with What Do You Want to Eat?
Sure. Yeah. So actually I started my blog almost 10 years ago, and I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. I was working at a consultancy, and it was a great job, and I loved living in Texas. I had just moved there from New York City, so it was warm and they're cute boys. I was happy, but my job was very boring. So I started, at the time, this is 10 years ago, people were blogging, but there was no Instagram, no Pinterest, barely Facebook in terms of promoting yourself. But I had been reading some blogs and commenting, and people would reply back, and I quickly realized it was this cool community, and I enjoyed it. So I decided to start my own blog. And at the time I was really into baking, and I was also really into theme parties. So I'd been making cupcakes to go with different parties my friends and I were having. So we'd have tie-dye or yin-yang cupcakes at a 90s party. So I was going to do a cupcake blog, and I told my brother this idea, and usually he supported my weird ideas, but he thought I would get tired of that. And I was like, I wasn't thinking I'd be blogging for 10 years. This is just a little hobby. Yeah. So he suggested doing Jewish food. And I grew up very like, Jewish. I didn't keep kosher. We went to synagogue on just the major holidays. I went to Jewish summer camp and ate bagels, and that was like my Jewish existence. But the food was always very important to me and kind of a big part of my growing up. So, but to me, it didn't even seem like Jewish food. The food you eat is just normal food. So I was like, of course, this is just food. But then he said, ask your friends in Texas if they know what a kugel is or a knish is, which are some Ashkenazi Eastern European Jewish foods, and no one did. So I said, okay, this is cool. I think I could show people a little bit about me through this blog, and I quickly took off, and I had some readers, and people were making my recipes and sending me pictures and feedback, and it just really became my whole passion and my whole world. So I ended up quitting my job to go to culinary school and just totally took a 180 or different path, and now here I am today. So still blogging.
The two interesting foods that I saw on your website, or really like from your drink into your food, was first the spinach and cheese challah, which looked like the Jewish version of a quiche. And then also you made a unicorn hot chocolate, which is kind of like sprinkled with marshmallows and all that stuff. So with those two dishes, like how did you come up with those ideas? Like, you're a very
Yeah.
fusion type of person. So how did that happen?
Yeah, that's a good point. I am definitely a fusion person. When I started my blog, I asked my bubby, who's my grandmother, for some of her recipes, and that's how I started, taking some of the classic recipes. But I've never been one to follow a recipe exactly as it is. And I think something cool about Jewish food is that, as we've moved and traveled around the world and ended up in different places, you kind of take the traditions and add in some local flavors too. So like Jews in Mexico will add chilies to matzo ball soup. So, I was living in Texas, so I would put avocados and things, maybe on a sandwich that wouldn't make sense. But I like to think my ancestors back in Poland, if they had avocados, would be eating guacamole, right? So we kind of use what we have. So I like to kind of take the traditional recipes and use modern flavors, add in different techniques, kind of combine Jewish foods from the Mizrahi and Sephardic and Ashkenazi heritages, which are just Jews from different places and different backgrounds, and kind of combine them to make a fun fusion food. So the challah is actually like a rich, eggy bread that's traditional on Shabbat. So usually every Friday night, you'd make or buy a challah bread. But you could tweak it, and there's so many options with the bread. You can fill it with different things or just do different flavors on top. So I love playing with challah as a base for like all these fun flavors. So for Rosh Hashanah, you normally have a round challah instead of a long braided challah. And that's kind of to symbolize the circle of life, how the years keep going, rebirth. So it's kind of a nice symbolic food. Jews have a lot of food that are symbolic. So you'll see that everything means something, but also means many things depending on who you are. So I filled it this year with spinach and cheese, because also first, that's delicious. I'm always thinking like, is this going to be delicious? And then I try to involve a little extra meaning. And on Rosh Hashanah, we eat different foods to symbolize different things. And the word for spinach in Hebrew sounds, I think it means similar to cut out like one's enemies. So basically eating spinach is trying to get rid of your enemies in the new year, is a little symbolic thing, just because it's kind of a play on words, like a little pun. And I was like, spinach goes well with cheese, goes well in the stuffed challah. So that one's been really popular. A lot of people recreated that for Rosh Hashanah this year, which is really just one of the best things about blogging, is seeing other people make your recipes and saying they're delicious, and saying they've never made a challah before, but it works. Like that's the coolest. And then the unicorn, so when I started my blog, I didn't think anyone was going to read it. So it was just for fun. So my brother and I would always say after Jew instead of after you. So I would open the door and be like, oh no, after Jew. Just a little thing we said. So that's where the name came from. What Jew want to eat, like kind of what you want to eat. So it's just for fun, and I think it kind of shows that I don't take things too seriously, and this is like a fun, happy, welcoming place. When you find my blog, it's not gonna just be very serious food. So then I've always loved unicorns, even before they were cool. So like unicorn sounds like unicorns. That kind of became my logo and symbol, and I call my followers the unicorns. It's just kind of like a fun thing as well. So the unicorn hot chocolate has tahini and white chocolate in it, so it's a little kind of twist on a classic chocolate with some Jewish inspired ingredients and rainbow marshmallows, and it's just fun. And
Ah.
so I like to do things like, sometimes I just think of like a weird idea and then just give it a try.
I do like how your blog is light-hearted, and I was interested in the challah as well, the spinach and cheese, because I'm quite a cheese person and I like cheesy breads
Yes.
and things like that. So that one was right up my
Thank
alley.
you. Yeah, it's especially good warm when the cheese is all gooey.
Oh man. Any advice for those who aspire to be a food blogger or even just have a cooking career in general?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of food blogging, I started 10 years ago. There's more bloggers every year, and I think that there's always room for new people. I think some people get intimidated. They're like, I didn't start in 2011, so is there room for me? And there's always room for new ideas. And I keep seeing new people doing creative things and coming up with new concepts I never thought of before. So I think first is like, just do it. Don't be afraid to do it. And then just, don't worry if you're trying to make a career out of blogging, not to worry about money so much initially, but kind of figure out your passion and definitely have kind of a point of view. So, my point of view is modern, fun Jewish food. So pick something that you love and be yourself. Don't try to copy other people. Just find your own kind of niche, whether it's some sort of vegan food or whatever is your thing. If you love making cheesecake, do a cheesecake blog. Just find your thing and you'll find your people, and then just start doing it. And I think for blogging and Instagram, just the visual aspect is very important, having beautiful photos, so that's something to practice. And then just having your personality in it. So I try to share some photos of me and some fun captions, and I try, it's kind of a balance of sharing yourself but not oversharing yourself, and keeping something personal as well. So kind of talking to people and connecting with them too. I try to answer every DM I get, and just sharing with things that I think will be helpful for my audience. Whenever I'm sharing a new post, I either try to make it entertaining or helpful in some way. So I'm not just sharing this because I'm like, oh, I went on vacation, I want people to see my fun pictures. I'm like, oh, you know what? I was in this foreign country and I found this Jewish restaurant. I thought you guys would think this was interesting. And this is the twist they did on matzo ball soup, even though I'm in Russia somewhere. So something like that I think is cool. So I'm always kind of thinking about not just sharing for sharing's sake, but how it's helpful too.
We're coming up to Hanukkah in December, and
Yeah.
it's like a lot of days, and I think like it goes through like Christmas too as well. But so for yourself, like, do you have any plans or special type of foods you're going to be making or putting up on your blog for that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I love Hanukkah. Most Jewish holidays are kind of revolve around some battle the Jews won, despite the odds. They probably shouldn't have won. And so to celebrate, we eat and drink a lot. So Hanukkah's like that. It's kind of a minor war the Jews won. Some people say it became a more important holiday because it's close to Christmas, to kind of compete with Christmas. Give Jews a little something fun too. The Jewish kids some presents. But either way, I think it's the holiday times are really fun and festive. Jewish holidays are based on a different calendar. So sometimes it's a little earlier, sometimes it's a little later, and overlaps with Christmas, but it's pretty much always during December. So I think a few years ago, Hanukkah and Thanksgiving overlapped, which we called Thanksgivika, which was, I think, very fun too, and involves some overlapping foods.
And just
Go
to
ahead.
cut in there, Amy, the things I forgot to mention is what about like if I'm saying this correct, Sukkot as well as Shavuot?
Yeah,
Are
so
are-
those are some different holidays. Sukkot's coming up. It's a harvest holiday. It's a celebration of like the harvest in the fall. So it's kind of a fun holiday. Traditionally, you would make a sukkah, which is kind of an outdoor hut, and eat in it and sleep in it for like the full week of Sukkot. So not everyone does that, but I think that's kind of nice this year. And it's nice that you're encouraged to eat outside, which is a little safer this year with COVID if you're gonna be eating with other people. And then you eat kind of harvest foods like pumpkins and gourds, and stuffed foods, or like maybe like stuffed cabbage are very popular, which is a symbol of a bountiful harvest. So everything's kind of like when you're eating food, it means something else too, which I love. So that's a great holiday that's coming up. That starts in, I think, a week from, in October 2nd. Don't quote me. I think October 2nd, and that lasts about a week. So that's the next major holiday, and then Hanukkah's after that, which there's many different foods depending on where in the world you live. But the underlying thing about Hanukkah is it's fried food. So even though there's different types of fried food depending on where your nationality is, it's pretty much always fried, which symbolizes the oil, the Maccabee sound for their candelabra lasted 8 days when it only should have lasted a very short period of time. So it's the miracle of this oil that lasted after they won this battle. So to celebrate this oil, we fry all the food. So for me growing up, that was potato latkes, which are a potato pancake, shredded potatoes. Sometimes some people add onions, some people just do salt and pepper. It's very simple: egg, a little flour. You can leave the flour out if you're gluten-free, and it still pretty much works. It does work. And then just fried in oil, and usually topped in sour cream and applesauce, or the traditional ingredients or toppings. But a fried potato, you can go crazy. It's really just a base for any kind of fun topping. And I love to play with latke recipes. Probably the other recipe I like to make is sufganiyot, which is really just a fancy donut. So it's a donut without a hole. So that's stuffed as well, usually with jelly topped in powdered sugar. But again, you can go like totally crazy with the flavors as well. So I'll definitely be working on some new latke recipes and some other fried foods. It's a gloriously gluttonous time. So it's perfect for the holidays.
That's awesome.
Thank
Oh,
you.
speaking of gluttonous and foods, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food? Well, that is a very tough question. I think if we're gonna pick my favorite general food, I would say sushi. I love sushi, and I never get
Oh,
tired of it. Yeah.
yay! I love sushi
Yeah,
as
we've been
well.
getting my husband. Oh, good. My husband and I love to cook and try different types of food, and so we've been into making our own sushi lately, and it's very fun. So
Yeah, yeah.
we've been making that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because let me tell you something, Amy. Like, my co-host only knows, like, even though she's Scottish, she knows about Japanese stuff. She's very good at
Oh,
Japanese
great.
food stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
love it. We went to Japan on our honeymoon last year, and it was. Have
Oh,
you been to Japan?
nice.
Have you been?
No, I'd
Oh,
love to though.
it's the best place
It's
I think I've
so.
ever been. It was just it
Oh
was just so
man.
clean. The people were so nice, and the food was all
Oh
incredible. Like it was just like, but you should go whenever when we can travel again. It's
yeah.
definitely make
Yeah.
it a priority. It was amazing. Um, anyway, I love sushi and all Japanese food. Really, we had a really great
Yes.
trip. And got to try really amazing things. Probably my favorite Jewish food is matzo ball soup. Matzah is kind of a dry, flavorless cracker. Some people hate, some people love. I like it. It's really just like a vehicle for toppings. Again, like it's very bland, so I like to put a lot of butter on it. But and it's popular for Passover, which is the holiday in the spring where we celebrate the Jews escaping slavery in Egypt, and they didn't have time for their bread to rise, so they had this cracker instead. So if you crumble up the cracker, it makes kind of a floury type substance, and you can add eggs to it and some other ingredients, and then simmer them in a broth, and it makes a matzo ball, which is like kind of a dumpling. So you put that in this chicken soup, and I don't think I'm describing it very well. I don't think it sounds very good, but trust me, it's amazing. They call it Jewish penicillin because it'll cure all your ailments, and it's just a very comforting food for me that reminds me of growing up, and I love to make it. And I think it's one of my favorite things to do is when we have holidays, when we used to have people over, is invite some people who are Jewish and some who are not, so we can all kind of show the holiday together and share it together. And everyone's been like a little skeptical of the matzo ball soup, but everyone's loved it. So that's one of my favorite foods and very comforting for me.
Ah,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like because when you say that, Amy, it kind of sounds like how you would do with the virtual Seder. And is a Seder kind of like a Jewish gathering, kind of like Shabbat, or is that kind of different?
Yeah, no, they're similar. So Shabbat is every Friday night, and there's you light the Shabbat candles, and you say some prayers over wine and the bread, and it kind of welcomes in the day of rest, which is Saturday. So that is every single week. And then the Seder is just the meal for Passover, which you do the first 2 nights of Passover. And during that, you read the story of Passover. Again, there's a lot of symbolic things like we have wine. You have 4 glasses of wine during dinner. So they don't have to be full glasses, but they can be full glasses. So so it's definitely a boozy holiday. And then during part of it, you dip your pinky in the wine, and then you put 1 drop of wine on your plate for each of the 10 plagues that the Egyptians had to suffer through during the Jews escaping from slavery. So there's a lot of like interactive things like that. So Passover is actually probably my favorite Jewish holiday. I love getting creative, even though there's a lot of food limitations during that time. During the week of Passover, you don't eat certain foods to kind of acknowledge the struggle of the slaves. And I think some people like hate it because of the restrictions, and I kind of embrace it. I think you can create some fun, unique recipes that way. So the Seder, which means order, is the meal for Passover, basically. And you have like the traditional foods and you read the story. So I like it a lot. It's really fun. So this year you mentioned that we did usually I've done Seders since college. That was kind of how I started my blog. Like ideas that I loved cooking Jewish food. In college, I didn't go home for Passover. So I started hosting these Passover Seders in my dorm. And by my senior year, we had 40 people of like every religion you could think of. And it wasn't very traditional. Like everyone had their own bottle of Manischewitz, which is a kosher sweet wine, and we had a keg because we were in college, and we had Easter candy because it was Easter too. Why not? So it wasn't a traditional Passover, but it was really fun. And I just loved hosting, and I didn't usually go home as I lived in Texas and different places. I couldn't always make it home for Passover, so I would host these large groups of people, and we'd have all different types of people too, and it's actually fun to have people that it's their first Seder because they tend to ask the best questions that you like forget to think about because you've been doing it for 20 something years and it's like second nature to you. And then they're like, why do we do this? And I'm like, I never thought about why do we do this. So this year it was just me and my husband, but I decided to broadcast it to some of my followers, and just, a lot of people said they were going to be alone this year and they've never hosted before because they always go to their parents, and now it's just them and their husband or their kids. So I did a virtual Seder, and there ended up being 600 people watching live and more watched the replay. So that was very cool. And I did it was my husband and I here, and then we did it with my mom and her boyfriend in Connecticut. So we were kind of doing it together, and people were watching and commenting and stuff. So it was actually so fun, and I never would have done it if it wasn't for this bizarre quarantine experience. But I think it ended up being a beautiful thing amongst all this terrible things.
So, Amy, how should people know more about your food blog in terms of like social media contacts, as well as like your book Sweet Notions?
Yes, so my book is all twists on modern Jewish desserts. That it came out in 2016. My blog is just whatjewwannaeat.com. It's WHATJEWWANNA eat. That's all my social media. I'm on Instagram a lot. I'm on TikTok now. I have like 200 followers, so definitely follow me on TikTok.
TikTok, because it's good that TikTok is still going. So like in the US.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Whenever you're airing this, if TikTok still exists, I'm there. So that's in my email is just amy@whatjewwannaeat.com. You can ask me cooking questions, anything like that. My book's available on Amazon. And also I own a Jewish gift store, which is called Modern Tribe. And I sell autographed copies at the store too. So that makes a nice gift. So it's all, I grew up cooking with my mom and my bubby, my grandma, but definitely we were like a baking family. They make amazing Jewish desserts, rugula, which is a cookie, mandelbread, another cookie. My grandma makes a really great apple cake, which is popular for Rosh Hashanah. So that was kind of my first intro into culinary arts, was baking with my mom and bubby. So it seems pretty apropos that my first cookbook is all these like sweet desserts. And if you see the cookbook, it's very fun. There's like me with like rainbows and like lying on a pile of bagels. It's just like a lighthearted, fun book. And there's a lot of classic recipes. Like for me, if I go to a Jewish deli, get the deli theme here. A black and white cookie I love a black and white cookie. It's a cakey cookie, half white frosting, like a vanilla kind of lemon flavor, half chocolate frosting. So I did in the cookbook, I did a black and pink cookie, and the pink side, it has raspberry in it, which makes it this natural bright pink color. So that's like an example of one recipe in the book. I have a boozy pomegranate cake. So honey cake is also very popular for Rosh Hashanah because it means like a sweet new year with the honey. But I always describe it as like the Jewish fruit cake, that it's always there. It's dry. No one likes it, but someone has to make it and bring it, right?
Like during
So
Christmas.
I kind of, yeah,
Nice.
exactly. It's the fruit cake, but for Rosh Hashanah. But so I worked on this recipe to make a not dry, delicious honey cake. So it has some whiskey in it. Why not? Pomegranate juice, honey, of course, make it honey cake. And I've gotten rave reviews on it. I make it every year. It's one of my favorite cakes to make. And I love it because you can make it 3 days ahead of time and it's only better. Like it doesn't get dry. It just gets like more moist. So that's in there too. That's one of my favorites. A coffee cake muffin I made recently, which coffee cake it usually doesn't have coffee in it, but I added some espresso to the streusel on top. So I made that recently for a virtual cooking class, which was really fun too. So eventually I'd like to do a savory cookbook, but for now I've got this sweet noshings cookbook.
Well, Amy, we'd like to thank you so much for being on our show, the
Oh, my
Autistic
pleasure. It's been
Delicatessen,
fun.
and just sharing these like Jewish foods as well as recipes.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I wish I could share some food with you, but maybe one day. Yeah.
Yeah, probably after COVID. Probably.
Yeah, after COVID, we'll have some cheesy spinach challah together. It'll be great.
Yeah,
It
nice,
would be.
nice.
Yeah, we'll meet in Japan. We'll have some sushi.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Have a big,
Yeah.
have a big buffet kind of thing.
Oh,
Yes.
buffets. Will that be a thing again? Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, if you enjoyed the Autistic Delicatessen, please check us out at theautisticdelicatessen.card.co. And it's right down at the bottom, and you can be able to find our podcast as well as our past episodes of our video series.
If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe for future episodes. Until next time.
What you eat and what you drink is your story.